You can never whip these boys if you don't keep you and them separate. I found that out in Birmingham. You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called Birmingham the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Birmingham had closed 38 public playgrounds, 8 swimming pools, and 4 golf courses because of the refusal to integrate. Dr. Martin Luther King stated that he would be leading demonstrations in the city of Birmingham until hiring practices and desegregation was met. While Martin Luther King Jr. was in jail, he wrote his famous Letter from a Birmingham Jail, which was an attack on a group of white men in power who were asking black Americans to wait peacefully for equal rights. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote this letter on pieces of toilet paper and in newspaper margins. He stated that those of us who are working through the channels of nonviolent direct action and refuse to support our nonviolent efforts, millions of Negroes out of frustration and despair will see solace and security in black nationalist ideologies, a development that will lead inevitably to a frightening racial nightmare. In May 1963, demonstrations arose again. On May 3rd, more than 1,000 of African-American youth in Birmingham marched through the town for equal rights. This is when Theophilus Eugene Connor, or Bull Connor, came in. Bull Connor unleashed police dogs on the people in the streets protesting and spraying them with fire hoses that had 700 pounds of pressure. What made this event so important was the fact that Americans throughout the nation, white and black, could witness this brutality. The police arrested 2,543 African Americans and whites combined. In 5 days of protest, the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce reached an agreement on May 9th with other African American leaders to end segregation in public areas and to release the prisoners without bail. A few days after the protests ended, white segregationists bombed an integrated motel. On the same day, a bomb destroyed Martin Luther King Jr.'s brother's home. In June, an assassin shot the NAACP representative from Mississippi, Medgar Evers, in the back. On September 15th, one of the deadliest bombs occurred at the 16th Street Baptist Church. 4 young girls had left their Sunday school lesson early to go help with the adult service. On the way to the adult service, the 50-year-old church building was bombed. These 4 girls, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, Addie Mae Collins, and Carol Denise McNair died. Overall, during the year of 1963, 10 people died, 35 black homes and churches were bombed, and over 20,000 people were arrested. Strict segregationists, including the Governor George C. Wallace, stood in the schoolhouse door at the University of Alabama to protest forced racial integration. John F. Kennedy had to send federal troops to stop this interference. James Meredith and other African American students were able to enroll after this event.
In 1964, one of the most influential moments for the country occurred with the Civil Rights Act. This act outlawed racial segregation in schools, workplaces, and any general public facilities. The days of separate water fountains and bathrooms were over. Although the people's mindset did not immediately change, the law did, and now voting rights were extended and no one could be turned down for work depending on their race. Specifically pertaining to Birmingham, the tactics used by Bull Connor were now illegal. There were no more police riots using dogs, fire hoses, and other inhumane acts. The tension between African Americans in Birmingham and the police were still there, and the image of Birmingham's violence still has an impact today. Police Commissioner Bull Connor was now the former police commissioner, but he was elected on June 3, 1964, to be the Alabama Public Service Commission director. Although Martin Luther King Jr. wrote his Letters from a Birmingham Jail in 1963, he also wrote a book called We Can't Wait in 1964 based on these letters. When it was published, it contained many different ideologies of King and his letters.
After Reconstruction, blacks still faced ridiculous obstacles preventing them from voting. Even though the 15th and 19th Amendments to the Constitution enfranchised blacks, the Southern Voter Registration Board used poll taxes and literacy tests, which were tests African Americans simply were not able to pass, to further dehumanize and prevent their race from voting. Upon even trying to register to vote, the blacks were intimidated and threatened by economic reprisals and physical violence. They had to do something. The Selma voting rights movement began on January 2nd, 1965. Dr. King spoke to a large gathering of people in the Brown Chapel about the order forbidding their right to assemble. the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee activists spread voter registration drives and protests in Selma and nearby counties. Marches and protests started being held. Their goal was to bring attention to the fact that their rights were being violated, so they decided to march to Montgomery to ask Governor Walz to protect black registrants. It was March 7, 1965, and the protest was going perfectly until the people crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where state troopers were lined up, waiting for them on the other side. The marchers were told to leave and go home. Jose Williams, one of the march leaders, tried to talk to the officer but was told there was nothing to discuss. The troopers began to shove the men, which escalated to them being knocked down and beaten with nightsticks, while another section of the troops fired off tear gas. The troopers on horseback charged the crowd, forcing them to retreat. The brutal violence was broadcasted all over television, showing raw, vile images of bloody and injured demonstrators, which only provoked more support for the movement. 17 marchers were hospitalized, which led to the naming of this day to be Bloody Sunday. A second march was held on March 9th, and the third march was allowed to be held after Judge Johnson ruled in favor of the First Amendment rights of blacks to peacefully march and protest, while simultaneously ruling against Alabama's supposed right to block them. This 5-day, 4-night march began on March 21st and covered a 54-mile distance. On March 22nd and 23rd, 25,000 people marched from St. Jude to the state capitol building and witnessed Dr. King's How Long, Not Long speech, in which he told the crowd, "The end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. I know you are asking today, how long will it take? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long."
So what we've got to see is that the things that are being done in such a creative manner by you will make Birmingham a better city for everybody.
Connor, you're a Democrat. Police official from the city of Birmingham, that's where it's at. Public safety commissioner, you represent bigotry. Fought against the integration of humanity. You really are a friend is the awfulest Eugene. That's not a real name, sorry, your mother was completely insane. It must have been hard, playground for you, but no one said bless you after you said a chew. You're the opposite of Martin Luther King. If we try to understand you and make our heads swing, you use fire hose dogs to take machines because you hated people who had different genes. You failed to take position of governor twice. It's safe to bet that did feel nice, but hey, at least you're persistent. When you ran for governor, you vowed to
protect employment practices, law enforcement, segregation, and other problems that have been historically classified as states' rights by the Democratic Party. You're a jerk.
To further prove this claim, we'll bring up Christina Brown. That 34-year-old secretary slept in the hotel on December 26th. You're a jerk. You're the opposite of Martin Luther King. If we tried to understand you and make our heads swing, you use fire hose dogs and tank machines because you hated people who had different genes. You failed to take position of governor twice. It's safe to bet that did feel nice, but hey, at least you're persistent. Yeah, it's our fault for electing you multiple times, but you committed adultery and that's a crime. You chose to quit
music instead of doing good work. We're logically you're completely berserk, and on top of that, you're a jerk.
You're a jerk.
I know.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
I know.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
I know.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
I know.